How many of you? 13? Brilliant.
It was a story that gripped the world.
I'm going to pause for a moment so that you can just get a sense of what it's like here.
In 2018, a team of young footballers and their coach became trapped in a flooded cave for 17 days. Miraculously, all 13 survived. Here's how it unfolded.
So I remember being at home and the person that was in charge of foreign news at the time called me and said, "Can you go to Thailand tonight?" Yes. Where these boys were trapped is really a very, very remote place, very difficult place to get to easily. So it involved a long flight to Thailand, to the Thai capital Bangkok. Then we took an internal flight to a place called Chiang Rai. And from there it was a drive of, I think, maybe about a couple of hours to get up to where this cave complex was, which was up near the border with Myanmar. So not an easy place to get to, very remote. This is the entrance to the caves, which is being closely guarded by soldiers from the Thai army. What we don't know is how long it will be before the boys are able to be brought up to the surface.
The boys are trapped on a small rocky shelf more than 2 miles from the cave's entrance, past a normally dry point of the complex called Pattaya Beach, which is now flooded. The team are in darkness with nothing to eat. They get by drinking the moisture from cave walls.
In the beginning, very early stages, there were some Thai rescue workers, some local people, but gradually, day by day, the mouth of the cave turned pretty much into a kind of village in its own right. There's lots and lots of frenetic activity, people coming and going, rescue teams who are arriving, changing shifts. But it's hot, it's humid, it's exceptionally muddy now underneath. So it is a continuing race against time to try to pump water out of the caves at the same time as overground scour the jungle to see whether there are any more entrances into the caves to try to find the boys.
The Tham Luang cave complex stretches under a mountainside for around 6 miles. And there are suggestions that rescuers could drill to the spot where the boys are trapped. But drilling raises concerns that part of the cave could collapse.
It was really, really hard there because back then we weren't very organized. There was nobody knew anything.
So I am one of the many volunteers here and one of the diving volunteers. I'm a cave diver myself.
Every situation we saw was new. Nobody had any experience with rescuing kids from a cave.
You know, most cave divers will have training to rescue other cave divers out of a cave, but rescuing kids out of a cave, that is new to most of us.
But I remember walking in the first day from the entry of the cave until chamber 3, where the diving is required. Until chamber 3, you can actually walk. It's wet, it's muddy and so on, but you can walk without submerging underwater. And that took a good 90 minutes, 2 hours to walk in there, and it's incredibly exhausting. Yeah.
The explosion in the number of people who were there was absolutely extraordinary, from very few in the beginning to divers who were coming from all over the world, rescue workers from all over the world, Thai Navy SEALs. All of the relatives came because they wanted to be close to their children, so there was an area where the relatives were. They congregated under a kind of canopy, but it was almost like you could see these people in there, like watching them in a goldfish bowl, if you like. They just sat watching Thai television the whole time with, you know, stress, anxiety, worry, fear etched on their faces. So you really felt for them, just sitting there waiting for any kind of grain of positive news.
It's 50-50 whether they make it out. But I won't stop waiting for my son. I hope a miracle will happen and my son is rescued.
The next day, divers make a breakthrough, finding the boys alive, huddled together on a muddy slope.
How many of you? 13? Brilliant.
They are found by British divers John Valanthan and Richard Stanton, who've been braving Tham Luang's narrow, murky passageways for several days, laying guide ropes and searching for signs of life.
We are coming. It's okay. It's okay. Many people are coming. Many people. We are the first. Many people come. Tomorrow. No, what day is it? No,
So that was, it was incredible to see live footage of the kids, for us rescuers, but even more so for their parents, to see that the kids were still maybe not having their best time, but alive. But the biggest challenge was people say, yeah, now you found it, everything is fine. No, finding the kids, I had nothing to do with the search of the kids. That was done by other divers, but now you have 13 non-divers sitting in complete darkness that need to do a 2.5 kilometer dive. Panic underwater is always an issue. It also happens for beginner divers. They are learning to dive and they have some kind of experience. Maybe a fish comes a bit close and they get panicky, or they don't think the equipment is working or whatever, and they shoot up to the surface and in panic. You will more than likely survive. You have the same panic attack in a cave, you will for sure lose your life, because there is no surface. You're gonna shoot up to what you think or what your panicky brain think is the surface, and that's a hard rock. Now you have a blood coming out of your head. That was a challenge, that Dr. Harris solved. How can we get these divers out and minimize, if not eliminate, the risk of them going into panic? Because panic would for sure have killed the kid, and not impossible if they would have taken the rescue with them.
I remember the night that the video was released, the cameraman and I had actually just filed our report to London, and I think it was kind of around 10 o'clock at night. And so we were on our way back to a guest house where we were staying in Chiang Rai, and we got a call from the news desk saying the boys have been found, which was incredible.
And we found our younger brothers are safe.
That all Thailand is here, and I think all Thailand is celebrating right now.
But it was only gradually that the penny dropped then about just how extraordinarily complex the task was of getting the boys out.
The following day, the boys are joined by a medic and Thai Navy SEAL divers who would stay with the group for the rest of the ordeal. The boys seem to be in good spirits and to have been given warming foil blankets and medicated liquid food. Now, rescuers need to figure out how to extract the group, some of whom can't swim, down the winding, flooded passageways.
Let's bring you some of the day's other main news. A former Thai Navy SEAL has died during this rescue operation to try and free a dozen boys and their football coach from a cave in Thailand. Authorities say Samarn Gunan died from a lack of oxygen, and now the already treacherous operation looks set to be hampered further with monsoon rains set to hit within the next 24 hours or so.
When you read about cave diving, unfortunately, many of the stories you read about is this very famous cave diver's last dive. It is unfortunately not an uncommon thing in cave diving that people lose their life.
The mood of this rescue operation has become more subdued following the death of one of the volunteers. But what hasn't wavered is the professionalism and the dedication of all of the teams involved. There is, though, an increasing sense of urgency. We've learnt that the levels of oxygen in the caves where the boys are trapped is deteriorating. There's also still the threat of more bad weather.
I do vividly remember just how critical the mud, the rain, and that whole experience of trying to kind of work and function in that environment and how difficult that was. It was critical with regards to why the boys were there in the first place, because they got trapped because of early monsoon rains. And it was critical about the timeline of getting them out before the monsoon rains got even worse.
Well, you can see why they've needed to launch the rescue operation when they have. The bad weather has really started to close in.
During the first phase of the rescue, the boys are manoeuvred out of the cave by the divers. They are wearing wetsuits and full-face air masks to help them breathe. They are sedated with ketamine to prevent them from panicking during the rescue. Some sections are so narrow that they can just about fit a body through, so divers push the boys through from behind. All along the route, different teams are stationed, waiting to play their role in the rescue.
Ketamine can be dangerous if you get too much, so they got smaller doses designed to roughly last halfway. And then when they came to Chamber 6, myself and Eric's, our job was kind of to make a medical examination to see how aware is this kid. Does this kid need another injection, or are they still under the influence? And the vast majority of the kids were starting to wake up, and they then got another shot in their thigh at that halfway point, and then had to take their equipment off and replace the oxygen tank, and then they continued out with the diver.
Once they reach chamber 3, each boy is secured in a stretcher and pulled through the cave using ropes and pulleys. Each boy is taken out of the cave one by one, transported to a military helicopter and flown to a hospital in Chiang Rai.
Let's take you straight across to Thailand because we have some good news to bring you. All 12 boys and their coach have been brought out of the cave alive, according to Thai Navy SEALs.
After 2 more daring rescue operations, everyone is out of the cave.
People here have been shouting, stay strong, keep on fighting to those children.
For me, my worst nightmare covering stories abroad and being somewhere remote is that something happens back home. And my sister was taken very seriously ill. She ended up having to have emergency brain surgery. So for me, when the boys were extracted, I ended up, at that time, I was by my sister's bedside in hospital. So I didn't get to cover the end of the story. But I remember just thinking, imagining the place and the scene as it would have been as I was somewhere else.
Right now is the time for celebrating.
Yes.
But everybody is safe and well.
Yes.
That's the main thing.
The young footballers are now famous and speak publicly for the first time. They sign a film deal with Netflix, travel the world and have their story retold countless times. Some of the divers are also thrust into the spotlight.
It's a famous event, and as you probably know, there's several movies coming out, and some are out already. I think the size of the operation is the biggest thing they get wrong. Yes, it's pretty far from the truth when you see that 2 or 3 guys go in and do it all by themselves. Yeah.
But I just think it was really clear from day one that it would make a very good film, and it was a really interesting story that people would find fascinating.